I'd like to introduce Mike Collins of WFAE 90.7 on your radio dial. He hosts a show called Charlotte Talks at 9 a.m. in the morning and again at 9 p.m. And he does a wonderful job interviewing a wide variety of people. Hello, Mike. You're on the other side of the mic this time.
I don't like that. And you'll notice that I have to have a pen in my hand when I talk, because without the pen, I can't speak. So thank you for being here.
Okay. First question I have for you, Mike, is one of the things that I'm amazed about how your show goes is that your ability to ask great follow-up questions. And I'd like to know, I mean, obviously it's due to research and experience, but how do you answer, you get up to such follow-up questions that you do?
Listen. You have to listen to what they're saying. I mean, and sometimes it's really hard. Listening is hard. Listening is really hard. But you listen, you prepare the, here's how I work. I prepare the interview ahead of time by doing a lot of reading that's supplied by our producers and come up with an outline of where I think the interview might want to go, because it's public radio and we want to maximize the time we spend with our guests. We don't want to waste their time. We don't want to waste the audience's time. But it doesn't always go where I think it's going to go, or even where I think it should go. And I'm listening to what they're saying. So if I can't possibly anticipate everything that the guest knows, so if they say something interesting or that requires a follow-up question to draw them out, then I ask the question, because I think it's the question that the listener would be asking if they were sitting in this chair. So the key is to listen.
Yes.
And
Do you ever want to interject your own opinions?
All the time.
Yes.
All the time.
And a lot of times you stop yourself.
I
right?
don't. I don't even start, because that's not what the show's about. I've worked in other situations where that is what it's about, but not here.
The show is Charlotte Talks, and or better than, I mean, you've been here in Charlotte a long time and probably have a very good idea of what Charlotte is and does. But what would you do with Charlotte to make it even better?
Gosh. Who am I? I just do a radio show. I bemoan the fact that we don't have a more vibrant artistic community, particularly when it comes to theater. We like to build nice buildings. We have more state-of-the-art theaters in 5 square blocks than they probably have in Manhattan. But we don't spend a lot of money on what goes inside them. The arts groups that are inside those facilities are always struggling, and that they struggle all over the country. But here we had a professional theater company that died for various reasons, and nothing has come in to take its place. And it's almost unconscionable for a city this size. We have a symphony, we have an opera, we have a dance company, we have a vibrant children's theater. Who said theater's only for kids? Why can't we support locally produced, high-quality theater in this town? Why does it all? Why can't we do that? And that's what I would help improve, or would want to improve.
Yeah, I moved to Charlotte maybe 4 years ago, and I came from Connecticut, which is a great state, but we don't have a Charlotte there. So I'm very impressed with Charlotte.
You got New York City right down
the
street.
We have New York City. That's good enough, I guess. Moving along to further topics of national interest, I had a question for you, and you can answer it or not answer it, but we're in a highly political time right now with the primaries going on with the Republicans. What parts of the conservatives would you like to emphasize, and those are good ideas, and what parts of the liberals and the Democrats' ideas would you like? In other words, why can't we just have a lot of people that take the best ideas from both parties?
Because neither side will allow that to happen. That's why. I'm not going to tell you what my point of view on that is, because I don't, that's not what I do. But I obviously you have people on the right who are entrenched, and they want their idea. It's very important to them that their ideas come to fruition, because the stakes in their mind are very high. There are people on the left with exactly the same point of view on their side of the issue, and it's become almost impossible to come together. And part of that, I think, is the media as it exists in the 21st century. We have Fox News, and they have They have staked out the claim on the right. We have MSNBC. They have staked out the claim on the left. And then the people in the middle, like your CNN, who is also viewed by the right to be liberal, but they do toe the middle line, I think, trying to get ratings, and they can't get ratings because there's no fire there. There's only substance. The people with substance have trouble getting the word out. And people want to hear today what they already believe.
Yes,
So
I think that's a fundamental thing, is that people want to hear what they already believe in. And so that's the fundamental desire I would have, would be to modify that so that people open their minds to other ideas.
The media needs to challenge people on what they're saying, particularly politicians as they run for president. We need to challenge their assumptions and their assertions. And we don't always do that. We spend, and I'm not necessarily including us in this. I think commercial television has ratings considerations. They're out there trying to get people to watch debates, and so they handicap the race. They don't talk about whether the 999 tax plan is feasible or would cost more money or less money, or whether the average person would benefit.
Not really.
Right, but instead they can't handicap the race. Oh, he's in the lead now because of his 999 tax plan. I don't think that's helpful.
So one of the problems is, as you mentioned, is the media. If the media were to change a bit, that might help. For instance, the debates. The debates are pretty uninteresting in the sense that they don't really allow people to say what they really want to. Not that they will.
Well, they're
anyway.
not debates.
Yeah, they're not debates. Now, what do you think about Gingrich's idea of having a 3-hour time slot where the two of them just go toe-to-toe?
Great idea. Never going to happen.
Never going to happen. I agree.
And he was generous by saying that he would give the president the option of using a teleprompter, which is very funny. It's very funny, but obviously the president wouldn't be able to use a teleprompter in an impromptu debate.
Right.
I'm not sure he would need to. He's not a stupid man. He's a very smart guy. They're both very smart. I don't know, yes. And I don't know why we're not electing debater in chief. We're electing a president. I'm not sure that the debating process is really all that sufficient for electing a president, but it does give you a better idea of what they believe. But the debates as they are now and have been constituted since the Kennedy-Nixon debate are not debates. They are press conferences and interviews.
Exactly. What do you think, or you don't have to answer this question, what do you think about the Supreme Court decision to allow super PACs so that rich people and unions and other people can affect and will affect in the future elections, not only national but local also?
Trying to think how to answer that because I really don't want to give out my opinion. I think that I think that we need to debate that. I think that the country at large needs to come out of this election and talk about how campaigns are financed and what this means with these super PACs. I think Stephen Colbert, who has done a comedic job of showing how the sausage is made, may greatly influence how we feel about this. Because you are seeing behind the scenes how these super PACs aren't disconnected from the campaigns.
Former employees are running them.
That's right. Ideally, that they are disconnected, but they really truly aren't, and the law is not sufficient. So maybe the law needs to be revisited, but that's not for me to say.
A specific question you can answer however you want to answer. Were you supportive of the Iraq War?
I'm not going to answer that question. What I will say is that when the idea of going into Iraq was floated, we had a lot of experts on this show, political science experts and terrorism experts and experts on our Middle East foreign policy over the course of many, many hours of programming. And what I decided then and said on the air was that if we go in and break it, we own it. And it seemed to me that after hearing all these people talk, that going in was going to be opening a Pandora's box. and there would be a lot of unintended consequences. And we didn't seem and we talked about this on today's program, we didn't seem then and don't seem now to have a very clear understanding of all the various factions that live in the Middle East, that exist in the Middle East. And if you don't go in there and with that understanding, how can you possibly fix it? How can you possibly, after you've broken it, put it back together in a way that it's going to work? And I think we're seeing, now that we've withdrawn our troops from Iraq, and it didn't matter which president withdrew those troops, eventually they had to come out, that the place is going to eat itself alive. Mm-hmm. Because
you had to know that.
They don't agree.
Yes.
Internally on what their country should be about. Right. And in fact, that country was cobbled together as an artifact of colonialism. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we really thought through the process of what would happen when we took it apart. And mm-hmm. we're going to see what's happening now. We're seeing what's happening now. Iran is stronger. Afghanistan is a quagmire. Iraq is tumbling into civil war. And we who depend on oil have got to figure out now what.
Right. It's very complicated.
It's very complicated.
Affair, because oil is added to the equation.
Right. And I don't know what Saddam Hussein had to do with 9/11. Mm-hmm. I never saw the connection. I still don't see the connection. Mm-hmm. So that's all I'll say about that.
Okay. So as a final question, if you, Mike Collins, were interviewing yourself, what questions would you ask yourself?
Very little, because I am the most boring person I know. I don't know anything. All I do is ask questions. What would I ask myself? Why? Why hasn't it worked out? What's wrong with you? No, I don't know. What would I ask myself? What would you ask yourself?
Well, I would ask myself, what can we do to change this system? I mean, I think the American system is a great system, but as in anything, it has flaws. The political system has flaws, as we just discussed, and there are a lot of other flaws, but we don't seem to be really putting our finger on what the problem is, nor have any desire to fix major problems. And I'd like to think about how can we fix those problems. Is it a fourth leg of the government that it only concentrates on such matters as transparency and truth in government and so forth? Because we certainly don't have that. No matter who's president, no matter who's in charge, they say what the polls would say. They say what they think the people want to hear, but quite often you don't hear the truth. So what is our, it's going to need a lot of solutions, but what is our starting point to solve these problems?
Then I would ask myself this, given all of that, of what you just said, I would ask myself, why don't more people listen to NPR? Because all we do is try to get to the bottom of things, and the accusations of being left-leaning, although there are probably some biases to the left and maybe some biases to the right in public radio, we try to keep it down the middle of the road so that what we get to is your opinion, whether you're on the right or on the left, and let the listener make the decision about whether or not that person's opinion holds water. You may not. Just because we have a show called All Things Considered, and we talk about all things, and we talk about all things on our show, doesn't mean that we agree with what the guest is talking about. So to me, I would ask, why don't more people listen so they can learn something? Mm-hmm. And then make their mind up. And it may not change their mind. They may go in with a fixed attitude and come out with the same attitude. That's okay. Mm-hmm. But at least they've heard the other side out, more than a 5-second soundbite.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great way to end this interview. Listen to NPR and become educated. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.